Tôi tuyệt nhiên không ham muốn
I
công danh phú
absolutely
quý
have
chút.
no ambition of wealth or
Riêng
position.
phần tôi thì làm một
My
cái nhà
personal
nho nhỏ,
wish is living in a small house close to nature, where I can go fishing, grow vegetables, and make friends with elderly woodcutters or buffalo boys. I want to be absolutely away from honors and privileges.
Tôi chỉ có một ham muốn.
My ultimate desire is to bring complete independence to the nation and complete freedom to the people. Everyone must have full access to food, clothing, and educational opportunities.
Cũng được học hành.
Hãy nhìn kỹ.
Take a close look at the young waiter who's carrying a tray in a London hotel. Who is he? What have his eyes seen?
Đã trông thấy những gì? Tên thật người là
His real name is Nguyễn Sinh Cung, who was born in 1890.
nước
Vietnam was in a French colony.
thuộc địa Pháp. Năm 1910,
In 1911, the 21-year-old youth called Nguyễn left his family and homeland for the West.
mở rộng tầm mắt nhìn
He wanted to widen his sight beyond the horizon, and thus, having gone through different seas and oceans to many places worldwide,
những nghề
he
lao
tried his hand at different jobs, toiling to earn his living.
anh vừa làm vừa
Despite
tự học
hard
không
work,
ngừng
he
và
never
được
stopped
nhiều
learning
tiếng nói.
to improve his knowledge, and was able to speak many
Anh
foreign
nhìn thấy
languages.
từ châu Á, châu Phi,
He saw
đến
with his
châu Âu,
own
châu
eyes
Mỹ.
that the misery, hunger, and humiliation suffered by people were the same everywhere, be it in Asia or America.
Ở đâu cũng có những người lao động bị bóc
Laborers
lột,
everywhere,
bị lừa dối,
especially slaves in colonies, were always exploited,
là những người
cheated,
nô lệ ở các
maltreated,
dân tộc thuộc
or
địa.
killed.
Khi đến hoạt động ở nước
When he
Pháp,
was conducting clandestine revolutionary activities in France under the name Nguyễn Ái Quốc, he published the paper Le Paria. He established the Union of Colonized Nations and wrote the book French Colonialists on Trial. In 1920, Nguyễn Ái Quốc became one of the founders of the French Communist Party. Later, he moved to the former Soviet Union and became an activist in the international communist movement. Swedish painter Erik Johansson was the first to draw a portrait of Ho Chi Minh and commented, "This man is exceptional in several domains. He is an erudite and versatile person." Soviet poet Osip Mandelstam wrote, Nguyễn Ái Quốc facial expressions stand for elegance and tactfulness. His manner represents cultural quintessence, not of European culture, but probably that of a future culture. His noble gestures and deep voice reflect tomorrow's world, where amidst serene sky and calm seas stands out the boundless fraternity and friendship like an ocean. After 30 years experiencing all twists and turns of life, including imprisonment, one day in 1941, Nguyễn Ái Quốc returned to the homeland. From then on, he has been known as Ho Chi Minh. This is Bắc Bó Cave, the birthplace of the Front for the Independence of Vietnam, known as Viet Minh. These three branches were used as his bed. This water source also witnessed the earth-shaking days. Uncle Ho stayed in this makeshift house in Tân Trào in the pre-insurrection days. These days, he was critically ill and feared death at times. One day, he sent for Võ Nguyên Giáp and told him, "Now, opportunities are ripe. Independence must be won at any cost, even having to burn down the Trường Sơn Range." In August 1945, Viet Minh's National Congress was convened here and decided on the general insurrection. The time was ripe to decide on the nation's destiny. Within 10 days, the forests of red flags mushroomed in all corners of the country, with streams of people boisterously surging like a storm. In the general insurrection to respect power, people chanted, "Vietnam, Vietnam." On this very table, in a house in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh wrote the Declaration of Independence. Those were the happiest moments in his life when all Vietnamese people had been anticipating for over 80 years.
Đồng bào cả nước, tất cả mọi người đều sinh ra có quyền bình đẳng, tạo hóa cho họ những quyền không ai có thể xâm phạm được. Trong những quyền ấy có quyền được sống, quyền tự do và quyền mưu cầu hạnh phúc. Lời bất hủ ấy ở trong bản tuyên ngôn độc lập năm 1776 của nước Mỹ. Suy rộng ra, câu ấy có ý nghĩa là tất cả các dân tộc trên thế giới đều sinh ra bình đẳng. Dân tộc nào cũng có quyền sống, quyền sung sướng và quyền tự do. Bản tuyên ngôn nhân quyền và dân quyền của cách mạng Pháp năm 1791 cũng nói: người ta sinh ra tự do và bình đẳng về quyền lợi và phải luôn luôn được tự do và bình đẳng về quyền lợi. Đó là những lẽ phải không ai chối cãi được.
Câu nói của Chủ tịch Hồ Chí Minh.
President Ho Chi Minh's sudden query to the audiences, "Can't you hear me clearly, fellow countrymen?" surprised the ocean of spectators below, who then burst out the positive response.
Có quyền hưởng tự do và độc lập, và sự thật đã thành một nước tự do độc lập. Toàn thể dân tộc Việt Nam quyết đem tất cả tinh thần và lực lượng, tính mạng và của cải để giữ vững quyền tự do độc lập ấy. Chúng tôi toàn thể
We, the entire Vietnamese people, vow to be single-mindedly support the provisional government of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and support President Ho Chi Minh. We swear to join the government to safeguard national independence and fight against any schemes of oppression, although we have to sacrifice our lives. If the French invade our country again, we swear never join the French army, never work for the French, never send food to the French, and never guide the way for the French. Right after the day of declaring national independence, Ho Chi Minh initiated things to be done immediately. The people are suffering from famine. I propose the government launch a campaign for food production and livestock breeding. How painful we are at our meals when we think of those who are dying of hunger. Therefore, I propose to you, and I will do it first, to do without meal every 10 days and spare this rice for the poor. Formerly, during the domination, the French colonialists carried out a policy of obscurantism. They did not want us to get an education so that they could deceive and exploit us all the more easily. More than 90% of our compatriots were illiterate, but it would take only 3 months to learn to read and write Quốc ngữ, the national Romanized script. An ignorant nation is a weak nation. I propose the launching of a movement to fight illiteracy. Formerly, we were under the rule of absolute monarchy, then the no less severe colonial rule. The country then had no constitution, and the people enjoyed no freedom and democracy. We must adopt a democratic constitution. I propose the government hold a general election as soon as possible under the universal suffrage. All citizens from 18 years of age, regardless of sexes, social backgrounds, religions, and races, are entitled to nomination and election. On the 6th of January 1946, the entire population went to the polls to elect the first National Assembly of Vietnam. We have established the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. But if an independent nation brings no freedom and happiness to the people, then that independence is senseless. The then Premier Phạm Văn Đồng recalled the heady days. Right in those days, President Ho Chi Minh worked out extremely important lines and policies for the next stage of development. Uncle Ho requested fighting the enemies of literacy and foreign aggressors. He stressed the need to launch a movement for a new lifestyle, new culture, and new type of people. He required full respect to the people's rights, including rights to democracy. The feudal and colonial regimes applied a policy sowing division between religious and non-religious people to facilitate their domination. I propose the government declare the policy of freedom to religions and solidarity between religious and non-religious people. The independence will then so fragile. Hundreds of thousands of the Chiang Kai-shek troops converge onto the north, while hundreds of thousands of Japanese troops were still there. In the meantime, tens of thousands of British troops landed in the south. Divisions of French armored vehicles under the umbrella of the British troops also headed for the country. On September 23rd, the joint British-French troops opened fire and seized Saigon, which sparked off the war of resistance in Nam Bộ, South Vietnam. In order to be successful in the struggle for democracy and in national construction for a new lifestyle, physical fitness is required for everyone. Each and every individual must do physical exercises. Healthy people will make a wealthy nation. I hope all compatriots will engage in physical exercises. I myself practice it every day. The traditional Lunar New Year festival that year was loaded with anxiety and hope. Pilgrims to pagodas and temples prayed for luck, not only for their families, but also for the nation's destiny. Chiang Kai-shek sent a minister to Hanoi to take over Japanese surrender. He brought with him a plan of smashing communism and arresting Ho Chi Minh. Amidst the streams of people in Hanoi, Chiang Kai-shek's minister thought that the plan could never be realized. On behalf of the government, President Ho Chi Minh drummed up for talented and virtuous people to serve national reconstruction. The nation needs a rebuilding, and this cause needs talents. Quite a few such people will be found from the 20 million compatriots. The localities must conduct surveys to seek talented people who can make contribution to the well-being of the nation and then report to the government immediately. 1 month after the day of declaring national independence, President Ho Chi Minh sent a letter to leaders of ministries, provinces, districts and villages. We must be aware that government agencies from central down to local levels must serve the people, share public tasks, not oppress the people like during the French and Japanese domination. Vietnam were then surrounded by enemies with the French in the front and Chiang Kai-shek at the back. The Sino-Franco Treaty was signed. President Ho Chi Minh ruled out one of the threats by signing the treaty with the French on the 6th of March 1946, resulting in the withdrawal of 180,000 Chiang Kai-shek troops and 15,000 French troops allowed to station in the north for a fixed period as mutually agreed upon. The French government recognized Vietnam as a free nation, and the two sides would continue the negotiations on Vietnam's reunification. For the first time, the Vietnamese government was present at the party to an international accord. Admiral Thierry Duc-Janlieu, French High Commissioner in Indochina, invited President Ho Chi Minh to a meeting in Hạ Long Bay. Look at Uncle Ho's eyes facing that threat. President Ho Chi Minh told Sang Tini, "Those ships are not allowed to enter Vietnam's waters." Before leaving for France, he wrote a letter to people in South Vietnam, urging them to be closely united. "I advise you to unite closely and broadly. The five fingers are of unequal length, but they are united in the hand. The millions of our fellow countrymen are not all alike, but they are descended from the same ancestors." The dossier on Ho Chi Minh, stored by French Secret Bureau, wrote clearly, "Death sentence, execution upon arrest." Today, the man sentenced to death by the French administration got aboard a French government plane to fly to France. What would happen?
Paris, đại diện chính phủ Pháp đón có nghi thức.
In Paris, the French government representatives offered a ceremonial welcome, but with a wait-and-see formality. But masses of overseas Vietnamese, patriotic personalities and French people welcomed President Ho Chi Minh. So many yellow-starred red flags were seen. Uncle Ho met Việt Kiều, overseas Vietnamese. He addressed them as the nation's offspring who live long and far away from the homeland.
Trong gia đình Pháp Việt đấy thì có đẻ ra các cháu, tức là có cái đi con đường trước Union Française, là amitié, gọi là cái gì Pháp Việt phát triển. Đấy là các đồng bào thực hành trước lúc chính phủ thực hành Pháp Việt phát triển. Anh em chị em đồng bào ta đây đã đoàn kết, thì bây giờ là phải đoàn kết thêm, phải xem cái gương anh em chị em đồng bào ở trong nước. Vì sao mà chúng ta bây giờ được cái địa vị chúng ta mới có đây? Đấy không phải Hồ Chí Minh gì, là không phải một cái đảng nào, một cái phái nào, cái nhóm nào làm được đâu. Đó là nhờ tất cả đồng bào, và tất cả đồng bào mà có cái lực lượng đó là
This is France's northern coast, where fierce battles took place during World War II. His hands threw away landmines and covered the artillery barrels because peace is all people want. The talks in Fontainebleau became more and more intense before they ended up in deadlock. In a last attempt, on the night of September the 14th, 1946, President Ho Chi Minh signed a provisional agreement with the representatives of the French government with much compromise in order to save peace. In his memoirs called The Story of a Mischance of Peace, Saint-Denis wrote, "What a shame France was unable to evaluate precisely Ho Chi Minh, nor was it able to understand his role and power." Soviet historian Kobylev wrote, "Ho Chi Minh, a great Vietnamese patriot, extended his friendship hand to a great French patriot, Charles de Gaulle, but de Gaulle failed to hold that hand." General Võ Nguyên Giáp recalls, Uncle Ho made several historical turning points. After returning from France, he and other comrades in the political bureau standing board were aware that our compromise had reached its point break. There remained only a thin ray of hope for peace. On November the 5th, he wrote out all urgent tasks to be done, then convened the Vạn Phúc Conference to decide upon the national resistance war. After the meeting, he asked me, when the war breaks out, how long can you protect Hanoi? I answered, about 1 month. Later, we were able to protect the capital city for 2 months. Then he asked, how about other cities? Much longer, I replied. What about rural areas? Was his next question. I said, we could protect them. He said silently for a while before saying, okay then, we'll return to Tân Trào.
Hỡi đồng bào toàn quốc, chúng ta muốn hòa bình, chúng ta đã nhân nhượng, nhưng chúng ta càng nhân nhượng, thực dân Pháp càng lấn tới, vì chúng quyết tâm cướp nước ta một lần nữa. Không, chúng ta thà hy sinh tất cả, chứ nhất định không chịu mất nước, nhất định không chịu làm nô lệ. Hỡi đồng bào, chúng ta phải đứng lên.
The scenes of the mountains, rivers, streams in the Việt Bắc region remain unchanged, but they have turned a new leaf of history. These are personal belongings of the president in those heady days. Uncle Ho's example of sacrifice is followed by each and every Vietnamese for the independence and well-being of the nation. Soldiers won widespread love from the population, who fondly called them Uncle Ho's soldiers. During the atrocious war, the entire nation, as well as each individual, rediscovered their exceptional ability. Those historic words of resistance still echo from Uncle Ho's verses he wrote during those days. The yellow-starred red flag flies high against wind. The trumpet sounds of resistance wars awaken the nation. All people join the resistance in a comprehensive manner. We are determined and sharpen our will. March forward, soldiers and compatriots. We have strength and we have large numbers. Protected war of resistance is bound to win. Independence and reunification will be won. Uncle Ho wrote to Dr. Vũ Đình Tùng, I learned that your son heroically laid down his life for the fatherland, Doctor. You know I have no family nor children of my own, but my family is Vietnam and my children are young Vietnamese people. Whenever a youth is killed by the war, I feel as if I lost part of my body.
Tôi thấy như mình mất đi một phần cơ thể.
Qua mấy mùa thu kháng chiến
The wind sings its song through the autumn of resistance. We come from different parts of the country, leaving behind our families and meeting one another in a larger family and proudly marching forward. The leader of the whole nation and army led his life that way along the war of resistance against enemies. This happens in an army where the commander and soldiers treat each other like father and sons, brother to brother. This unity brings massive strength, as Uncle Ho put it, quoting an old saying. It looks odd beholding a cricket trying to hit an elephant, but one day the elephant may have his intestines ripped off. At a decisive meeting to launch the Điện Biên Phủ campaign. One, two, three. Let's pull this artillery over the mountain pass. 1, 2, 3. Mount this piece over the hills. The hills may be steep. Our world is higher. The name Điện Biên Phủ has signaled the collapse of the old colonial system. This name has become the common pride of all oppressed nations. Young people who left Hanoi years ago are now back with rifles on their shoulders and flowers in their hands, marching in the streets of the 1,000-year-old capital city, smothered in cheers and tears of welcome. The pole dance, typical of the Tây Bắc northwestern mountainous region, is now adding more joy to the liberated Hanoi. The dance on those bamboo poles are luring even international youths and friends to the inspiring and merry-making performance. The former author of the thesis, French colonialists on trial, now embarked on building a new life. Rice fields from now on are plowed peacefully. The flow of fresh water brings more future hope.